Well, hello and welcome back to the Building Investors YouTube channel. We're going to be building a picnic bench today. So let me show you the design. We've got the lumber all loaded up here in the truck, and we're out here in the beautiful forest, just for a good background, and it's peaceful, and my dog can run around. So anyways, let me show you the design real quick, and then we'll slap all this together and make a picnic bench. So this is the top view. So just a regular, if you imagine a picnic bench, that's what I'm building. It's pretty simple. So top view, you got the table, and you got the two places to sit. Again, where you sit, top, and then there'll be a brace here, a brace there, and then the side view, you'll have the two triangular shaped 2x6s here and 2x4 across with the seats on the side. So that's what we're going to build. We're going to make it 6 feet long, and so we're going to cut these top boards first. There's probably going to be 5 or 6. Haven't decided on how many yet. We'll line them up and see how big of a tabletop we want. But we're going to cut these boards down into 6-footers right now. Now that we've got all of those 6-foot boards cut for the top of the table and for the seats, those boards there, that will be the 6-foot portions for those. We need to start on the next most complicated portion, which is these pieces here. Now, figuring out this angle, it's kind of up to you on what you want to do. What I did is I took a full board, a 2x6, and stood it up against my tailgate here. And then I kind of like did this. I was like, that's not steep enough. That's not steep enough. That's too steep. That looks about right. So what I decided was 20 degrees. So I took my speed square and took this, and then I took it to the 20-degree mark. So you just pivot it out. And then that gave me the angle for this, and you just match the angle up here. I know I wanted my table to be 30 inches off the ground. And so I made these 28.5 because the top of the table is 1.5 inches thick, and so accommodate for that. And so it'll be 30 inches off the ground from the top to the ground. So now I just need to make 4 of these. And so I cut one, labeled it P for pattern me, and then I just need to make 4 of those. So I've got 1, 2, I'll cut 2 more out of this board, and then we'll worry about the 2x4 attaching it, or attach a 2x4 underneath here that I'll screw up into the bottom so you won't see the screws from above. And there'll be a 2x4 going across here that you can stick the seats on. So super simple. So let's go ahead and cut this piece, and then we'll figure out this together after we get it done. And then we'll do those little triangle pieces there. So anyways, let's cut this down and move on. Moving on to the next step, this is how we'll do it, and this is how I will explain it. This is how I actually figured it out. It's real simple. Since we don't have a nice level flat ground to build on, like in a garage or something, I made this 2x4 the ground. So imagine this standing up like this. So this is the ground. So your table legs are going to sit on that ground right there, and then you can measure up from here to there, to there, to there, whatever, to set your chair height wherever you want that to be. And then you can also determine how wide you want these legs to be apart. The way I decided it is I took 6 of these 2x6 by 6 feet longs, stacked them all together, and then this board that I'm going to be using to tie them together underneath, I cut to be 1 inch less than the full width of these boards. That way there's a little bit of a reveal here, so you don't see this board just sticking to the end. That would look ugly. So we made it 1 inch short on both sides, and then we cut this nice chamfer on it. Just basically took a 45-degree bevel on my saw and cut it, and I'll show you how we do that real quick. So I'm building the entire thing with a circular saw. It's real easy. Just a cordless saw, doesn't have to be Milwaukee, but I do like Milwaukee a lot. Sponsorship, welcome. Not sponsored. Set the degree to 45 degrees there. And then what I did is I cut it until I liked where it ended up. And so that ended up being setting my saw at 2 1/4 from the fence, which is, this thing is called, well, it could be called a fence, I don't know. I set it to this side of the line here. That way when I cut it, all I got to do is follow that line, which gives me that nice bevel. Did that on both sides, and then this board goes on top of these boards. And what I did is I used that 2 1/4 mark, and I line it up with the end right there, except for this will be on the bottom, and these will be screwed into this. From this step, I moved on to this step. I got the board spaced apart accordingly how I wanted to by using those lines. So let me zoom in here. Ta-da. And then I screwed that board to those boards, locking it in place. And then I took a full 2x4x8 and screwed it on there. Of course, it's wild. It's not going to hang out that far because that would be a ton of leverage. Of course, if you sat down there, it would launch these people, which would be fun, but not practical. So anyways, I got that cut, and I'm gonna lay it down there, and I screwed it to it, and then I stood it up. And I'm like, okay, is this the type of the table I want? So of course, there's gonna be 1.5 inches, a 2x6. All those 2x6s will be on top of this going this direction, and we'll screw up from underneath into those boards. We'll actually take this, flip it upside down onto that and screw it in. But I wanted to kind of sit on it and figure out, is this the right height for me or for anybody else? Because I'm 6 foot tall, which is a pretty average height, but some people will be taller than me, some people will be shorter, so I want to make it comfortable for both. And so what I did was I asked Siri what the average height was for a chair, and she told me between 16 and 19.1 inches or something like that. So I went in between those numbers and came up with a comfortable, let's see, what was it? 17 and a half, I think is what I came up with for the height that I liked. So I stuck my 2x6 on here, I sat on it, and I was like, that feels pretty good. I actually had a little bit lower, so I raised it up a bit, and I was like, yep, that's it right there. So now I know when I sit on this 2x6 with another 2x6 on top of it, and a 2x6 on here is exactly where I want it. So now I got this made, I can make another one just like it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these exactly on here where I want them to go, screw them down, 2 screws per 2x6. So it'll be nice and solid. And then I can flip the whole table over. Actually, I'll probably put those diagonal triangle pieces I was talking about on first to make those legs nice and square. And then I'll flip the table over, and I'll determine how much of a seat that I want. So I'm going to do two 2x6s. But if you squeeze it in too far, then you'll be sitting too close to the table edge. So I'm going to set it up where I can just put the 2x6s on there and slide them in and out and be like, that's exactly where I want it. And then I'll screw them down, and I'll cut this 2x4 to where it's not wild. I'll probably put a chamfer on it just like I did there to make it nice and smooth and clean. So with no further ado, let's give you a little time lapse of putting this one together, and then we'll flip it over, put this all together, and then bada bing, bada boom, I'll show you how to do the rest. To give you some detail on everything below, here it is. We've got these things set to where these boards are on the inside. These boards are on the outside. If I were to think about it to do it again, I might switch this board to the outside, which would give me these screws, instead of seeing them from the outside, which you won't because they'll be under the table, they would be on the other side, which would mean that would be on the inside. The screws would be on the inside, you wouldn't see them, is the whole goal there. But what we did was we made a center mark, a center mark, not a center mark. I mean, it's probably not going to heaven, but a center mark, because there's 3 on each side. And so we just made a line there, started in the middle, worked our way out both directions, and we put 2 screws per board. So pretty simple stuff. So now all we got to do is flip it over and then put the boards on where you're going to sit and adjust them in and out to where we think we might like it. And then screw those suckers down, cut these boards off, put the chamfer on them. Bada bing, bada boom, it'll look nice. So it's a little tweaked right now because it's sitting on the uneven ground, but not a big deal. So what we'll probably do is we'll flip it over, set the boards on where we're going to sit, make sure we like that, and then we'll flip it back over and put those diagonal braces on, because we don't want to flip it over and figure out we don't like the leg position and then have to move the braces. So flip it over, put the boards on, and then flip it back over, put the braces on. It'll all make sense in a minute. So anyways, let's flip it back over, put the seats on, and see what we like. Yes, it is looking pretty good, if I do ask myself. So we got the seats sat there. It's a little hard to say. Of course, these boards will be cut down. Like I said, we're going to move them 1 inch in from the end, just like we did with that board underneath. And then we'll put a chamfer going down this direction, probably halfway. Screw those boards from above. Set these 2 boards on this side, exactly how we did on that side. Once we get those fastened down, we'll flip it over, put the diagonals on. And then we're going to come back through, and we're going to stain the bottom, flip it back over, sand anywhere you touch with your hands. So the top, and then like underneath here, and then maybe where you sit, and then we'll stain the top, and that'll be it. So we're going to probably make sure we got everything nice and straight across here. Some of the boards got a little bit wonky and screw up, so we'll come through with our saw and straighten that line out as best as possible. And then we'll probably run a router along the edges and kind of round it off a bit if we have the right router bit with us. So no further ado, let's cut all this, put it all together in a time lapse for you. And now that we've got those braces cut, that finishes up the bottom of the table. Those diagonal braces there will lock the legs in. And so you're not like, when you're sitting on it, you're not like going back and forth like this. It'll keep it nice and sturdy. So now that we've got that done, that basically finishes the construction of the picnic table, which is, I mean, that was pretty quick. I don't know how long it took, but with the filming and everything, it took a bit longer. But if it was just me doing this, I could probably do that in an hour, I would say. Maybe a little more, who knows? Especially now that I know how to do it and all the measurements and everything I would do. I get done pretty quick. So anyways, you saw me cut a 45-degree bevel angle on those, not a bevel, angle, and a 45 here, and then I just measure from there to there. This is all a triangle, perfect triangle, so measure from there to there to there, and that will give you the lines to follow, and then you can cut it nice, and since it will be longer, if you get left at the 45 up here, it'd stick out, it wouldn't look good on either side. So I made it to where it was flush there, and I cut that nice and straight across. You just take your speed square, put it on this side and mark a line and then cut it. So pretty simple. So let's flip it over, do a little bit of routering and sanding, and that might be it for the picnic table. I mean, it needs to be sealed of some sort, and we've got some sealer in the truck from a project I was working on, an old deck, and so there's some extra in there. So I might shake that up and give it a nice finish one day. But for today, we're running out of time, so we'll flip it back over and show you the top and get the top sanded and routed. It'll look sweet. So I don't have the router bit that I want. So this is a router, if you don't know what one looks like. It has a little bit on the inside that spins in a circle, and it's got a little guide wheel on the top. And so this one is just a flush cut bit. So if I were to use it, it would go along the board like so, and it would make a nice, perfectly straight edge there. But the one I want is a round over bit, kind of has like a curve to it. That would match the board on the side here. See how it's revealed like this? And so if I had that round over bit, all I had to do is run it along the top and the bottom of this board, kind of like on that board there. And that would match this, but we can also do that with a sander. Just takes a little bit more finesse, which isn't a big deal. So I've got my sander here, and I've got some 80 grit sandpaper because that'll help remove material fastest, and it'll still be acceptable smooth for out here. So you can get rougher than this, and you can get a lot smoother than this. We might come back with some smoother paper later. But this comes in a sheet that is twice the size of this, and you just keep folding it in half. You fold it in half 4 ways, it'll make the size for this, so that's pretty easy. So we're gonna fold this, rip it, put it on there, and then we'll start sanding. So that's it, so let's do it. Ta-da! What do you think? Man, it looks good, doesn't it? Just a simple 6-foot picnic table, I'm gonna call it. I just sanded the top like I said I was gonna do. We'll probably stain it in another video or another day. It's just running out of time. What do you think, Copper? Look good? Yeah, I think so too. Let's see, in recap, when we cut the 2x6s, we cut one end off and then the other end at 6 feet, because lots of the boards have splits at the end. So if you cut one end nice and flush and then you cut the remainder off the rest, then you don't have to worry about the splits. I'm sure it'll still split some. These boards are still somewhat green because when I was cutting them, they're starting to pinch the blade. So these gaps won't be as uniform over time because the weather will dry out the boards and they'll crack open, which is fine because picnic tables are okay to have. I mean, if you want to brush some, if you spill a drink or you spill some Cheetos, you can just kind of brush them between the cracks and they fall on the ground. That's a benefit of eating outside, right? So it looks pretty good. There's a couple boards that are a little, like this one's a little bit higher than this one. I thought about screwing those together, but that's okay. A little bit of a gap there. Over in the end, you won't even notice the gaps. It just looks sharp, man. It's super comfy. Got the diagonals put in there, super sturdy. Looks pretty good. So anyways, you all watching this video all the way to the end. You're the bomb. Watch it to the end. You're great. You're great stuff. So anyways, hope you learned how to do it. And if you have any questions, it's a pretty simple process and it's not really like whatever you want to do, you can do. It's not super important. Some of the measurements are like, yeah, I'm a tall guy, so I like it taller. Well, I'm really short, so I want it shorter, or I want it to be a bigger top. That way I can fit food in the middle and still eat. Or I want it to be narrower. I want it to be cut in half. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. So use my guide maybe as a generic how to do it, and then build your own. And then tell me you did it. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. Have a good one. Don't forget to look in the description below. Leave a comment for me. I'd love to know you're watching. Have a good one. God bless.